meeting, and for almost a year, uh, we haven't had any activity for reasons well known. So when we decided to come back and start the event, so we decided to focus on practice. One, an obvious reason that coming as we do, we thought we are into the post-COVID period when we discussed this idea. It appears it's still not there yet. So we thought we'll start discussing about the practice as it responded to the challenges that it was facing and still facing, and also continue that conversation into uh, issues that are connected to what's happening now, but probably long pending, long overdue for discussion, and also see where this profession is heading. And we want to focus this conversation around the practitioners in Chennai because that's what we are about. And we are, at least most of them here, would be located in Chennai. I could see some familiar names in the participant list from other cities. I'm very happy to meet them as well. Hello to everyone there. Uh, and you could see that there is a very diverse panel, people with a lot of years of experience, young firms, people who do not just architecture, but also landscape. And I'm particularly thankful to Raj and Prabhakar for joining this because otherwise this will be architects talking to architects. So it was wonderful and we are very grateful for both having accepted our invitation because it's quite important to know what the architects, what the clients think about architects and what is their perspective about uh, the practice. And we have two different kinds of clients here. One is a developer who's been doing large scale and mid-sized projects, while Prabhakar, who started as a client for Pradeep, who turned friend, he says, and is more into construction now. And it's also be interesting to see what Prabhakar particularly thinks about architecture. So today's evening is divided into three sections. But this is to keep the conversation focused. And each section, we have a set of questions. I've framed this, and we will spend about 25 minutes each in each of these sections. So that will be for about 75 minutes, and we'll have some 15 minutes at the end to wrap up and exchange. This is a roundtable format, so there is no direct question and answer session. I request you all to type your questions in the chat box. I may take them as I read it and weave it into the conversation. And if there are some important questions pending, we can bring this back at the end. So please feel free to type in your comments and as you sort of hear us. That's the format. And the ambition of this conversation is very limited. So we're not here trying to resolve or figure out completely what are the challenges and opportunities. So the ambition is modest here. So we are looking at discussing what is the state of play as of today on 21st April 2021, as we are moving into another set of difficult times. And we hope these kind of conversations will help us self-clarify, think aloud collectively. And I'm sure each one would probably take a few things what relates to them and connects to them. So yeah, there is nothing like we're figuring out a path forward for everyone, or we are trying to find a final word on any of these questions and challenges. So it's a very modest ambition, yeah. But I'm sure looking at the diverse speakers, their experience, and I'm sure this will be quite an engaging and enriching conversation. So much for the preamble, yeah. So let's get into the conversation. So the first set of questions I'm going to ask, because this is connected to the pandemic and the challenges, because one, this is immediate. Two, it is really on top of our minds. And three, many of us are still struggling to figure out what this has done to the profession and what and how and to manage this. So let me first direct this question to Pradeep. Pradeep, what has been your experience in the last 1.5 years in terms of the challenges and how you have managed to sort of face this?
So, I mean, I'm going to take that question from two perspectives. One, as an individually as an architect and leading an architectural organization, and two, Varsha and Pradeep as an organization itself. So, definitely, it's been a very challenging time. Though we do a diverse range of projects which kind of insulated us from impacts in, say, 2008, etc., which were sector specific. This time, the pandemic kind of was across all sectors, so it impacted us pretty hard. And for right or wrong reason, we as an organization kept all our employees, we didn't cut salaries, we kept working. So that did put a lot of financial pressure on us, but that to me is still a passing phase. What was really important and interesting is that I think we had some of our busiest phase during this time. And we really reached out to, like we were talking in the pre-discussion, we reached out to people whom we hadn't reached out in a while in trying to get new jobs and opportunities. There's also, I think, we had a conversation, Srivatsan, in our office about this, about what were the challenges and opportunities people in our office during this period. That was very interesting. Most people felt that because they had to work from home and because communication had to be done in a more engaging way because you are speaking virtually. So people felt that they put in their best time and effort at this time. They really prepared for the meetings and discussions with me and with their other colleagues. And that helped them mature, both in terms of their communication skill and their own ability to analyze what they were thinking and wanting to convey. As also, I think it also made us as an organization, it kind of validated a few things that we believe in. One is that all design solutions are, especially in a country like India, need to be cost specific, had to be very cost conscious rather. And this pandemic did put a financial pressure on all organizations, all sectors, and that kind of helped us to become doubly conscious of that aspect. Two, I think the pandemic as a whole taught us, and I think the entire humanity, a great lesson in the fact that we need to be sustainable, that human greed and human, indulgence is definitely going to come back to bite us at some point in time for sure. I think it helped us, the lesson we took as a design organization was that designs need to be optimal. They don't have to be necessarily minimal all the time. They have to be optimal and not luxurious and indulgent. I think I'll end with.
Sorry, kindly, other than the panelists.
Door number.
Yeah, we can hear some background noises.
That is your audio. Could you mute yourself?
Yeah, I'm just muting everybody. I'm just unmuting.
So, okay. Pradeep, thanks for that opening remarks. And I'm going to now ask Anu and Madhumita to join in. Anu first and Madhumita next. You're the youngest in the panel, yeah. So as a young practice,
I muted everybody.
how has it been for both of you? So Anu, you want to go first?
Sure.
They can unmute
So
themselves.
I think this year has been a surprising year for us. When this whole thing started, we were wondering how our practice would go, because it's been about 12 years since we started. So we're just kind of taking off. So we were worried whether this would put a pin in it. And the surprising thing is that over this year, we've got a lot of inquiries, a lot of them, actually we working on the projects right now. We did get a lot of inquiries and a lot of detailed requirements and things. I think people have lived actually in their homes the last year. They've come to realize what they need. More importantly, I think what they don't need, the spaces they don't need. And surprisingly, many of the requirements were for, like shared use. Before we would get, I want my space to be like this. I want this for myself and that for myself. But Everything seems to be okay. The family can do things here, and we can have this space where we can eat outside, and we can. So we have a lot of very, I'd say, common, like shared spaces that have become more important. And yeah, so we have got a lot of new projects this year, which we didn't expect to get.
Good for you, I know, and your firm. Good to
Thank
hear
you.
that, because we have been hearing only some kind of sob stories. So I'm very happy to.
We did. I mean, we did. I can't say there were a whole lot, but it wasn't as bad as we thought at all. We were panicking at the beginning of the year.
Happy for you. Madhumita, what was your experience?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I think whatever Anu said, I think when it comes to the home segment, because we are majorly into residential segment, I think fortunately that was something where people were looking at with a more deeper perspective. So it did kind of come across in a better sense. But on the other side, when I would say like the initial phase of the pandemic and then the later phase, I think the later phase was when like people were, coming up with more projects and all of that. But in the initial phase, I think it was more like a proper pause that, everyone could take. So even as an organization, I think that and also that we are a bunch of people working together, and then when we're constantly running, I think for any organization sometimes it's that, like, when you're constantly running, I think to really sit back and look at how you're performing or what is it that you would want to perform, and the why question, what questions that we ask. I think the pandemic did give us that opportunity. It gave the mind space to do that. So we did do a lot of interaction, conversation, looking at how the organizational structure itself would be, some amount of system building. So I would say, in a way, that it helped us kind of reboot with a different perspective, and look at operations and being supportive of each other itself from a different lens. So in that sense, from an internal point of view, I think it was a great thing that we had the pandemic times.
Oh, another bright story there. Raj, can I ask you, how was it for the developers this year and before? And had you had to stop your project or fire a few architects and sort of ask them to leave or something? Raj, you're on mute, if you can unmute it.
We were only doing a couple of projects. And fortunately for us, the size of the projects were just 15,000 square feet and 12,000 square feet. So we were not affected much. But if you look at the industry as a whole, they had a lot of labor issues, people leaving them, and some of the quality people also left them. Even the local labor have moved out, and some of them don't want to return, and they have gone into agriculture and other things like that, because most of the laborers come from Tirunelveli and Salem belt. So that this was one of the reasons, there's been a tremendous gap in this quality issues now. And the next issue was even the prices going up in logistics because of the demand and the other issues which are coming up along with that. There are also other issues which are coming up with the labor. For example, the demands have gone up after they have come back. They want to be accommodated at site. They also want to be insured so that the family can get something in case of some kind of a mishap or whatever it is. Now, coming to the sales as such, it has dropped by almost by about 30%. The prices have dropped, and the collections are very slow, and even the stage payments are coming in very slow. They are attributing it to the COVID. I'm talking about the entire industry. I'm talking about as a whole. And the people are preferring to take up projects which are 60% complete, 60 to 70% complete, because they want some sort of a security that the builder will complete it on time. And also the preferences have changed. Now people are looking at villas, looking at smaller community buildings rather than the larger developments. Okay, and now coming to the employment, a lot of these high value employees have been asked to leave, and they're also been, the salaries also are being renegotiated to about almost 50% of what they were getting. Now these are some of the challenges which the builders are facing at the moment, and we really hope these things improve shortly.
Thank you, Raj. That was quite candid statement. Puts things in better perspective. So I'm going to now bring in my Sharti and Sham first. So Raj was saying that they had to renegotiate the salaries and projects and so on. So I'm going to ask you a more financial kind of question. So how was the revenues of the firms? And I mean, of course, you're going to speak from your perspective, but based on your general understanding of what is happening in city, did the architects face this big crisis of revenue shortfalls? And did this crisis expose a certain lack of financial organization within the architecture firms?
You've gone on.
Sham, can you hear us?
Yeah, I kind of, yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. You want me to repeat that? Or
yeah, you went little, it went stuck. I couldn't hear you.
Okay. Basically, I was asking, taking from Raj, if what was the impact on the architecture firms in terms of revenues and how the firms manage, not only from your firm's perspective, but also if you have a general idea of the things around your firms, can you share that?
Yeah. With the background of lockdown, many things which were about to start were just put on back burners. So all your projects which are in scheme stage or costing stage, all those went on clear back burners. And those projects which were supposed to be delivered dragged on and on for a year, almost, because of the issues Rajkumar Reddy just told, labor issues, people not turning up at the site and all that. So it actually takes a lot of hit on the revenue as such. Whatever revenue that you have projected, even if you have achieved about 70%, 65% of that, is a great success. But I think those traditional architecture firms, and one of those firms is ours, we always have a working capital of 6 months on hand, and we don't spend the money that we have already received in the past couple of years. And further to that, there is no loan on running. If the youngsters make such mistakes of taking loans and running a company. So if those things are not there, then I think that traditional values, I think, was very much required for something as unprecedented as this. So revenues would take a hit. All of us had to take the entire office had to take a 30% cut. And some of these project sites where there was no progress of work, we had to stop those engineers. And those who went home could not come back. But then everything is coming to a little bit of normalcy now. Lockdowns was not a great thing in the sense, okay, in a way, initially it was very good. We thought we will do everything online because all the apps, all the infrastructure, everything is available. But then within a fortnight, we realized that most of the work is done from the feedback from the site. And the site was not functioning. There is no feedback from the site. All that you have done and sent, it just stays there. So the initial euphoria of doing it online, everything came down. But then competitions, couple of competitions we entered and it went very well, because the way you do competitions is kind of teamwork, but at the same time, it is not to the detailing of construction. So that went very well. A tender for a 8,000 seater convention center was done, designs were done, tender was done, negotiations were done, contractor was finalized. But when it came to GFCs, such a complicated building, it was a huge mess. I'm just openly saying this because then we realized we work real time on team. The entire team has to be present, looking at each other, asking for doubts, getting clarifications, and the dependency on each other is so much that was not possible through virtually when it came to good for construction drawings. So we had to quickly reassemble the team once in a week to come to the office, share the drawings, discuss with each other, and go back. It was not a easy thing to do. That way, I have answered your revenue, but also some problems with the lockdowns.
Sure, thanks, Shyam. I know PTK is architects a solid firm, and I'm not surprised that you have 6 months working capital, and I'm sure that may not be the case with everyone. So it'll be interesting to hear other views. So I'm going to ask Aarti and Magesh to see what were the kind of adjustments and innovations you had to do in these 1.5 years from your own practice point of view. Aarti, do you want to go first? Aarti, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. We are not a huge firm. We're not a small firm. We're like a boutique practice, which is somewhere in between. And in the beginning, when there was this real harsh lockdown, I think it's like all the professionals we work with and all the professionals in the city, we were just in this state of frozen limbo. I mean, it's like you continued with the work you had, but you had no clue what was in store for you in the coming year. Thankfully, things have been actually pretty okay. I mean, it's not been a doomsday thing at all, barring the first 2-3 months of it being tough. Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand, Raja saying how GFCs and stuff like that, the real technical stuff, the way we had to do it was like, the newer employees of the firm, the older ones were great. I mean, you just had to say, okay, so the amphitheater is like this, whatever. You gave sketches and everything was fine. I mean, you're talking of your architects who were older, but the ones who were new were like, there was just no way. It was really tough, I have to say. And in fact, some of them, we had to say that, look, can you just take a break? Because there's no way, we're just redoing the other part of the office, which is more experienced, was, redoing drawings, and it was just a whole lot of double work. But we figured it out in time. And I must say, this virtual meeting, I think it's not just us, it's the whole world which has figured out that you don't really have to physically go to a site so many times. You don't have to physically go to a meeting. I mean, there's so much which can be done virtually. So it's been a very interesting learning experience, definitely, in terms of how to communicate, not just not communicate within the office in terms of, sketches, drawings, and then whole projects get done. I mean, whole projects get done just with not even seeing each other face to face. We've pretty much worked work from home, barring, the few times when on really large projects, you have to come together, say when you need very powerful systems and stuff like that. But it's been nice. And I have to say probably, and this is the case, not just with landscape in Chennai, definitely with landscape architects in Delhi and other places. I mean, landscape in this pandemic, open space, green space, landscape has been now, definitely you see a bit of a shift. A lot of builders mostly, and therefore their clients see landscape as a value, not just as a product, for pretty pictures. So I think it's a great opportunity for the landscape architecture profession, because now you definitely look at landscape as a value, green open space as a value, and stuff like that. So I think it's been interesting. It's been a time of huge change, but on the whole, no sob stories. I think it's been good. It's been very different, and it's been good.
I'm again happy for that. But Aarti, I'm going to ask you, maybe unlike the question of working capital, and were you able to manage, how were you able to manage any financial crisis, if any? I'm assuming there was, but if it wasn't, I'm quite happy to hear that.
I think we just, it was like month to month you scraped through. But once again, we probably had a year's financial capital, which we didn't use up. So yeah, so in that sense, yes. But it all came back. I mean, I have to say towards the second part of the year, so much of work came in finally that it was just, it was actually pretty okay the whole year.
Thanks to you. Mahesh, how was it? What did you do? What sort of innovations your practice had to do?
I think, when I was in the Bauhaus, my last presentation, basically, when I was moving to the, from education to practice, on that last day was the 2001 attack. So I was actually born in crisis as a professional. So in that sense, you had the 2001, and then, by the time you settled in and you thought you will have a better practice, 2008 happened, and now you are in 2021. So, I mean, for us, I think as a small practice, it feels like you're always in crisis. It doesn't feel like, crisis hits you. Of course, this one was slightly different because the other ones, because this one was a bit more apocalyptic in the first few months at least. So you didn't know what you were doing. There was a kind of a liberation also as part of the apocalyptic, that you don't need to address your everyday firefighting issues. But I think once that settled in after a couple of months, we lost a bunch of projects. And because of the way that we have been in crisis throughout our professional life, we have kept our overheads low. That's probably also the reason why, I'm still sitting in my office, and my office is like, working in full strength even now. So, so we are probably overworking, with keeping our overheads very low. So in that sense, I think, yes, we did take a hit in the beginning, but as, things started opening up, we started finding, in fact, newer patrons, like newer kind of projects. I think the pandemic actually gave a lot of time for clients or potential clients to think about what they want to do with the money. So it actually opened out newer patrons. So currently, I think, we are fairly busy. We have been fairly efficient, and I think our office is full of extremely young and passionate architects. So, and they're super tech savvy. So I think we have been fairly okay in terms of managing our process. And our office, I mean, right from the beginning, we have had a fairly stronger system in terms of managing drawings, to how to do it, and so on. So I guess that kind of really came in handy during this pandemic. So I would say, yes, it was difficult financially right in the beginning, but I think now we are okay. We are better off, than where we started.
Really, I'm really feeling good this evening. So all been positive stories. People are on their feet, agile. The practice is looking up. What more can you ask on a gloomy week? Prabhakar, now to you. Now, before that, so those who are listening in, if you have anything to comment, ask, kindly use the chat box. As I told you at the beginning, there won't be a question and answer session. I may sort of weave some of your comments and questions into the conversation. So feel free to type in. So we continue. Prabhakar, what did you see in terms of change from the architects, from the projects that you have been doing in the last 1 year or so, which you didn't see before? So were they more agile, they became inventive, or they just gave up? So was there any change that you saw? I know you closely work with Pradeep, and I don't mind. I don't think he wouldn't mind if you have some candid things to say. Okay, Pradeep.
Not at all, not at all.
Okay, go.
Feel free, Prabhat.
Okay,
Well,
Prabhakar.
anyway, I would say that. I mean, we enjoy such a relationship that I don't mind saying anything.
Please.
See, that definitely, this work from home or, the accessibility, in my opinion, increased. Okay. Because earlier, there were, one thing I always tell people also, this work from home, it changed the perspective. You 9 to 5, that paradigm got shifted. So, people are accessible even after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So in terms of accessibility, it definitely changed, not just with the architect, in general with most people. And weekends also we were able to access. So that communication became stronger in one aspect. In another dimension is, not being able to go to the site, not being able to meet as needed, due to this concerns, COVID concerns, that definitely had some impact in terms of productivity. Overall, I would say, with respect to working with the architect, I think it increased in, it improved in a positive.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay. So having heard all your responses, so I'm going to move to the next section, and we are keeping good time so far. Now, this general complaint that I hear as I keep talking to friends and acquaintances, that Chennai is probably one of the cities which does not value design as probably Bangalore or Ahmedabad, and one could see that reflecting in the kind of projects or in kind of fees. So, would you agree with that, Pradeep?
It's pretty much like a chicken and egg question, isn't it? That's in that. Is the supply the issue or the demand the issue? But I think if you ask me, my thought as an architect is that my belief rather is that most people do want a good thing. Of course, they may have different set of parameters how to define a good thing in, say, Chennai or Bangalore. But I also do believe that it is, as an architect, it is our responsibility to convince our client that what we are offering as a design solution is good for them, and that we have understood what parameters they are thinking and operating within, and the solution that we are offering is a good design. So I think it's a little convenient and easy for us as a fraternity to kind of put the blame on the demand side of things. But I think it is a little bit more about the supply side. I think as a fraternity, if we really start turning out good designs which still meet whatever parameters, be it cost, be it regulations, be it whatever, conservativeness, mindset, whatever we want to blame it on, I'm sure that as architects, we can still produce very good designs within these parameters. And I think that's the challenge we need to take up as a fraternity, rather than kind of look on the other side and say, hey, there's no good, there's no demand for good design. I think it's up to us to change that mindset. And I think we need to take responsibility for that.
Raj, I'm going to bring you here in. I'm going to ask you, what in your view is the value addition an architect brings to project? So have you experienced through your interactions that the architects do bring in value addition to your projects, or do you think they're primarily limited in the spheres of spatial planning or in aesthetic consideration, but really not expanded? And in that sense, there is a problem of supply of good design. Raj, please unmute yourself.
They form the heart and soul of any development. I think they're the people, I would talk for a larger developments. I think they're the master planners. They're the people who bring in a lot of value to the project. They're the ones who think ahead what's going to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Without them, you can't do anything. So they form a very important part of things. Design is a very important part.
But could they do more than what they're doing?
Yes, now see some of the points I have noted down, which runs into 10 points. Would you want me to just
Sure,
read them?
quickly, if you can just, and probably pick the top 5. And
yeah, see, one of the main things is, right, starting from better understanding of the relevant planning and regulatory bodies, right from the application to this is for them to understand, to maximize the value proposition of the development for the developer. That is saving time for the approval process and projects so that the projects can start earlier. For this, they have to have a knowledge of what they're preparing for the client, for him to submit it and get the sanctions on time, because most of these cases we outsource this work to somebody and they have to have a very good knowledge before they do this. Okay. Now, another point is for a better understanding of the commercial feasibility of a project and viability of a project. By this, we mean that they have to take the land cost into consideration. They also have to see what is the built-up space, which one is going to build on that. What is the premium FSI? What is going to be the selling price? For them to have a better understanding the viability of the project. It's just not design. They also have to get involved in these things. Also to improve the in-house capabilities for approval drawings. And they also have to know the development control rules of CMDA corporation, the RERA requirements and compliance, and the CRZ norms. Then coming to one more point is the design concepts and parameters. To understand the end users' requirements, user lifestyles, value systems, customs and beliefs, understanding of spending capacity, ticket size and cost aspects. Better understanding and research on the product to be designed on the basis of end user, target audience, location, land and construction costs. Okay, and now one more point is, this is more for a person, let's say he's new to the field, it would help him to understand this field better, because let's say he comes in from another, a totally different industry. If the architect can add some value addition to this by bringing in all these extra things which is required for the development. So one of the main and key important things which I would want to know is that improve on technical aspects of a development, which is totally lacking at the moment, is the contract management, area statements. And then we talk about understanding the concepts of UDS, plots, mixed developments, etc., costing, budgets, BOQ, tender process, variance from estimated BOQ to actual quantities, and basic understanding of structural design, electrical and plumbing. See, now talking about structural, I believe personally that all structural engineers should give in some design analysis of how they are designing their buildings, because I think most of our buildings are over-designed by at least 20 to 25%, and there has to be some kind of a logic of how we are going about this. Now, this has to be addressed.
Raj?
Yes.
Raj, are you saying that basically architecture firms cannot be anymore just a mere design firm? So you're looking at a firm as a sort of a multi-discipline or a multifunctional.
Yes.
Firm.
Yes.
Okay.
Now for this,
that's basically what you're saying.
Yes. Right from the site involvement, construction sequence, schedules, and we talk about various things when it comes to that. Like, it's just not site visits, and it's also a question of detailed involvement of procedures. Expect details based on sequence so that the works don't get delayed. Coordination between consultants for better results. And this goes on. So I would like to just say this because, and this is possible. This is maybe happening because I'm talking about general industry as such. I think it's because of the low fee and the competition. If an architect is working for 15 to 20 rupees, you can't expect him to give all these all what you're expecting him to give. So I think they should renegotiate with all the builders and ask for a better fee and be very open about it and say, look, I will make it into 2 compartments for you. We will make this the basic concept will be, and design will be 20 or 25, whatever you want to say. And then that extra charges of another 15 or 20, what you're charging, I will give you all these services, because this is very, very important for a success of the project, because it just doesn't end with design.
I'm sure, Raj, with this question of renegotiating low fee, you will have many agreeing here, and certainly in this audience. But I think one of the important points you're making alongside this is, what is the kind of firms do clients expect? Where is the premium? Is the premium on the total service under one firm, or is the premium on design? So maybe I can bring Mahesh here. Mahesh, how would you respond to this? So Raj is a very fair expectation. So saying that if you look at it from a client's perspective, I come to a firm and I would like to get the entire services from one firm. And normally architects spend a lot of time and give importance only to design, but you would very well know more than 75% of the time of the life cycle of the project is in managing and executing it. So are the architects well equipped to deal with that? Or you think, no, there is space, then some firms can do this and some firms can do something else? Mahesh, unmute, please.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to what Raj is saying. I mean, I think we have worked with him. I mean, he knows we give complete set of drawings, before the site even breaks ground. I mean, I do agree that we need to be taking care of several of the aspects that he has mentioned. But definitely, hello.
Yeah, go ahead. We are listening. Mahesh, are you still there? Mahesh, we can hear you. Can you go ahead? Okay, till Mahesh joins, probably I can bring in Madhumita here and also ask Shyam to just check. Okay, Mahesh is back. Go ahead, Mahesh. Continue.
Yeah, sorry. No, what I was saying, I mean, what I was mentioning earlier is, see, I do agree to what Raj is saying, and of course, fee is a huge issue. And I think, Raj would vouch, because we have also worked with him, that, we do give complete set of drawings before the project goes to site. But I do have one question. I mean, I don't think it only stops with the professionals involved or consultants involved. And I take it, it's a fair point that architects need to give the complete package. But there's also the other side of the, coin, which is actually the construction itself. How many of contractors or how many of the developers would be able to sort of account for it? Because today, if I go and ask my structural engineer, why does he charge? I mean, why does he, increase his steel? Their common complaint is, I cannot go there every day at any site and see how they are actually executing the work. So they have almost least trust in the way things are executed. So how does one counter that? From the architect's point of view, I do agree. Yes, I think all the points you made, are well taken, and it definitely helps one to even prop up one's design agenda if one is, successful in addressing all those, including sequencing, interaction with consultants and all that, provided it's adequately compensated. But the other part is the actual construction of it. How many of the clients are able to take that responsibility?
You mean to say, Mahesh, there is also a problem in terms of execution, not just offering
Absolutely.
services? Is that what you
Absolutely.
say?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just going to bring in Madhumita and Shyam here. What has been your views on this point, Madhumita? Because you're a partnership firm, but unlike Shyam's firm, you're mostly architects, I assume. So you're predominantly offering architectural services. So how do you respond to Raj's suggestion that the architects sort of buck up and deal with the larger, issues of building and not just stop with design.
That is, as a client, I think his expectation is quite valid, and I also feel somewhere where an architect's responsibility begins and where it ends. I think that is always a blurry line, right? So as designers, the constant learning keeps going on, and then collaboration, and then coming up with what is required and setting up a system to offer to that. And I'm pretty sure that the way BTK operates and a lot of organizations more like integrated. So, so what I feel is, I think who you're giving, whatever you're giving, it's not about only what we want to give. It's about what the final outcome is expected out of you, right? So even when we are giving a lot of architectural services, it's not like if we sometimes say like, architecture separately, interior, each of everything like separately, it's a very different thing. But, now it's become very normal that, you provide design itself as a package. And along with that, various other technical services also as a package. So it's no more like, looking at them independently. What is it that, it facilitates or makes it easy for the end user? If we can also relook at it and see how the business could cater to that, I think that's how we should be looking at.
So, Madhumita, I'm just going to ask you that one of the points which Raj mentioned, that partly it's not that the architects are not willing to do this or choose not to do this. It's also the question is the low level of fees that's being paid, and you to expect an architecture firm to provide all these comprehensive services is not possible. So is that an issue? Do you agree with that? So it's also partly to do with the kind of professional charges.
I would say yes and no. Yes, because as a professional, it's also a choice depending on what works for you, your system, what doesn't work for you. Because I also believe there are builders who do an amazing job and they are open to listen, they're open to pay, but striking that balance or reaching out to the right people and where they work together, I think that's where sometimes there's a disconnect. Like say, we had a very, what do you call that, a biased thought process, maybe builders do not give us the flexibility in the initial stages of a practice, but then later we did kind of get introduced to some amazing people. So in that sense, I would say it's about that a negotiation and the value addition that mutually we could put together, and having that open. I think that's the opportunity.
Sham, you're a firm which offers all these services under one roof. So how has it been for you? Sham, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just lost you in the middle. Okay. We are a firm of, I understood what you wanted to say. So we are a firm of 50% architects and 50% engineers, and we firmly believe that what we design, we have to be through the entire design and the construction and then deliver it to the client. So it is our basic responsibility as an architect to do that. Raj was very clear in asking everything that under the roof. Yeah, it is complete comprehensive architectural services, but are we ready to pay for that much as builders? That is the first question that I want to ask.
Yeah, we lost you. Sham, if it would help, you can keep your video off.
Housings, wherever there is a builder or a developer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your voice breaks. So if you want to switch off your video, that's okay. So that may help your band.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
yeah, wherever we are working with the developers, we see this entire responsibility matrix completely diluted. Number one, either it's because of wanting to reduce the consultancy fees or wanting to reduce the total cost and gaining massive control over construction and wanting to do labor contracts mostly. All these gets completely diluted. Whatever costs that I give will never work if it is labor management at the site. But then the heat is, I understand that now the heat is on the developers because there are these boutique developers who are catering to high-end clients. Like my clients come back to me after 15 years, even if there is a waterproofing issue, we have to solve it for them. I think the same thing is happening to even developers. If you go and see livespace.com, which is just a online platform, they are giving 10 years guarantee for all the services. If an online platform is giving, I'm sure developers will be forced to give these kind of warranties and guarantees. So the responsibility is completely coming back to the developers, which would come back to the architects now, and architects will be asked to take up more responsibility. I think that the whole wheel is turning back towards the architects. I think we should be prepared for giving that kind of services. Yeah.
Thanks, Shyam. Anu and Aarti, I'm going to ask you. Anu, you're a young firm. You're setting up your trajectories. So in the light of all this conversation, how would you want to position yourself as a practice as you go by? You want to offer multi-services, and is that the only way to survive in this city? Or is it possible to focus and add value to design and innovation? As one of the comments in the chat box said, architects must start thinking about design in terms of how to avoid disease and how to respond to some new challenges. So there must be a lot of emphasis on innovation. So if we were to do that and also do other things, is it possible, or need not be mutually exclusive? It's still possible to do all
that. To be honest, our clientele basically is, we design homes primarily at the moment. And it's not like something we chose, but those kind of projects started coming, and because our practice grows, through word of mouth, we kept getting similar projects, and we've kind of fallen into that niche now. So we honestly haven't worked with developers as of now, and we hope to, because that's, I feel, a way to expand your practice. But I do think it would be great if we could deliver all these services as a package, because sometimes we tend to get carried away with ideas initially and carried away with design. And then after you complete a large portion of the design, you go to a structural person who says you cannot do this. This is not possible. And then it avoids a lot of back and forth if you sort of work with your own, the people that you regularly go to. Since you're offering the service to the client, you consult with all your regular people, and you're able to give a wholesome design. And I feel that might avoid a little of back and forth when it comes to design. And this is something that we are thinking of. We are thinking of forming a team that would give us support right from the beginning. So it's not only about design, but we address the practical issues of a project as well.
So basically what he's saying is it doesn't have to be necessarily everything in-house, but if you can tie up and keep your firm lean and thin and but still be efficient, that's a possibility.
I think, yes. Yeah, it might be a possibility. Yes, sure.
Sorry, I'm just minding the time as well. So,
sure.
Aarti, quick views on this?
If I may butt in, Srivatsan, I think there should be diversity. There should be diversity. Okay. You should have these multidisciplinary firms, and you should have these niche firms which specialize in a certain value system, or in a certain product, or in a certain approach, or whatever. So I think diversity is the name of the game. The more, the better, kind of thing. And if you are into huge projects, and each of us has worked on huge projects where you do need the different professionals, and they all come in, like Even if you're not a multidisciplinary firm, you all come in as a huge team. So, I mean, that's the way it works anywhere at all. So, you know.
Yeah, point taken. So I'm just going to bring the client and architect here, Pradeep and Prabhakar, ask this little touchy question on the fees. So really, is the level of fees in Chennai is low, and is that one of the principal reasons for certain kinds of levels of services? I'm sure you know about things around the country. So would you both agree the fees charged in Chennai is low?
So, I mean, I'll talk with my specific experience with Prabhakar. So, Prabhakar pays us well. He
Okay, we'll take that.
negotiated with me on the fee I've quoted. I, on my side, try to keep it reasonable. So, thankfully, we have an equation where we trust and have a certain understanding. So I think we are adequately compensated in this specific case. But to answer your question more in general terms, yes, the fees are in Chennai on the lower side. There is pressure from many clients on the fee. And I was very happy to hear what Raj said, that at least I think if there's a recognition of the value that we bring, because we are also like Mahesh and like Shyam, we, of course, I think we are more like Mahesh's firm, that we are a comprehensive services provider. We do outsource all our consultancy, but we coordinate everything under our umbrella and offer it. We don't have engineers in our organization, but we do coordinate. We have a very pretty set team of a lot of engineers and consultants who work with us regularly. So yes, that's a yes and no. Generally, yes, fee is low. With specific with Prabhakar, no, he's one of my bestest clients.
Prabhakar.
Prabhakar.
Thank you, Pradeep. And
Prabhakar, we can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Pradeep. And no, I feel the fees, from what I'm hearing and talking to people outside Chennai, the limited knowledge, the fees in Chennai is definitely on the lower side. And, I feel that the fees, whatever we are paying, is well worth the service that we are getting. There is, like Raj said, a lot of things Raj added, pretty much except marketing, pretty much added most of the stuff under the architectural services. If someone is offering that, that is good, but again, like Shyam said, at what cost? Can we all afford that cost? So as it is with the fees that we are paying, I think we are quite happy. And if there are more services added, I think that will also be it is definitely going to be better. But again, I am talking from a perspective of luxury homes and commercial projects. So are they applicable to smaller projects and individuals? I think that will be even the budget homes. They will all be mostly cost conscious and cost sensitive projects. So even if these services are added, I don't know whether people will be able to buy those services. Developers.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to move to the third section, the last of the.
Watson, can I just button you? We started this session about with the discussion about the chicken and egg question is the demand supply question, and we kind of digress. So, would you like to just spend 5 minutes and throw that question at a few other people?
Yeah, I'm going to take that into the next section and kind of connect it with things that follow. Because now the next section is this year, we are talking about whether the issue is of that of supply or as that of demand. One, we are also talking whether you offer service, we pay, or we are saying you pay, we offer service. So this chicken and egg, which Pradeep is mentioning, is how this plays out. Okay, now, this is not only a question of services and pay, but also what is the constituency for good design? Does this city value design? And to me, fees and this demand for multiple servers is one of the indicators of that demand. Okay, and if you were to get that money that you ask for, then that is also is an indication of how much a client is willing to pay for such kind of services. Or unless that's not the case, the fees remain low and in no way you're able to raise the bar. So with that in the background, I'm going to pose a set of questions. Whether this is a problem internal to the profession, or is it a problem external to the profession? What I mean here is whether the architects continue to imagine themselves more like artists and high-end designers, and they're unwilling to change or imagine themselves as entrepreneurs and embrace new ways of doing things. Is that what stops them from demanding certain kind of fees and exhibiting their value addition better? Or it's not a fair way to portray the problem? So Madhu, do you want to go on this? So do you think architects mostly remain in the realm of being a high-end designer artist? Or are you seeing your generation and probably even the previous ones embracing changes and reimagining themselves?
I think that, most of the, considering that architecture, specifically architecture, not the allied design fields, which are now becoming part of the architects. In that sense, architect himself is not trained to think business by academics. So when he comes out of it, and his knowledge about business is through the internship and the practice that he gets in wherever he joins work. So the way, even when they become entrepreneurs, that's what goes ahead. So if we see mostly, like including us in the initial phases, or even now most of it, I think we're very heavy in our operational cost and the way we, the pace in which we work. But actually the world is moving so fast, and the expectation is also much higher. So are we also relooking at the profession accordingly? I think a lot of people are trying to relook at it, being a little more open to look at the game itself from that point of view, especially when we are talking about a lean organization, and especially when collaboration is the way to go, and all of that, where a more inclusive and a diverse outcome is still possible, keeping the operational costs and everything low, which automatically brings down the overall cost that we kind of make. I think it's not purely about the competitive pricing, it's also more optimized and enriched as a product. I would say, I think that's how I think it's coming out to become, I would say. Especially when you're looking at the package way of work, and especially looking at our service provision itself as, so this is also answering the previous question, like what is it that as business people we would want to cater to. So in that sense, it's just architectural design, or whether it's catering to a builder or catering to a home buyer, or it's, so the interdependency of the business has to be very clear, I think. And what is expected, I think that has to be defined more holistically nowadays, rather than looking at it in parts. So,
Magesh, there was a comment in the chat box saying that the revenue model of this whole consultancy business itself has a serious issue. And Magesh, are you still there? Okay. So we'll wait for him to join, but I'll probably pass this question to Aarti. Do you think the way in which the consultancy services, in terms of its revenue model and the way it approaches, okay, Magesh is back, so I have to put the question to him. Magesh, I was just asking you, there's a comment here in the chat box that the revenue model of the entire consultancy has fallen out. This is not a problem pertaining only to architecture. So, and in the context of the bigger question, whether the revenue is an impediment factor in terms of innovation and expansion of the architecture part. So you would say the small firms can't do or vice versa.
I think I want to just quickly revisit your question and kind of, like you said, do architects work as artists? If that is the premise, then I would have seen a lot of artistic buildings in Chennai, or artistic work in Chennai.
I meant they
to
can
me, I
imagine,
think
but they need not
it
deliver. No, just sorry.
but then the, I mean, yeah. So no, I think I'm trying to kind of understand that question itself here. So if they imagine and if they are delivering something, so do they kind of, then we should have seen that at some sense. So yes, at one level, yes, I think we are at fault, but also there is I think as a city, I think it needs more patronage for better work. It's an I would undeniably say that I think we have not had that for decades together. There aren't any great public buildings. There aren't any great work. Even sort of in the post 2000 post liberalization period as well. So I think we do need that, and I think that is purely because of the patronage.
You said there is low
On
demand.
the question of, I won't say low demand. I think there is also a huge shift that probably because there has been lack of any kind of patronage. I think the other cities, some of the cities that you mentioned, be it Bangalore or where there is more flow of capital and there is an increased sort of reception of newer ideas, are able to sort of thrive in that space. Whereas I think here we are still kind of struggling to kind of work around that. Because I think the model that most of the cities that you're talking about are moving towards, where they have strengthened and streamlined all the aspects of producing good architecture, right from conceptualization to the process of construction, to the interior, to the final experience. So I think if you look at all the cities that you initially mentioned, there is a streamlining of all these, and there is a kind of clear demand of all that. So I think in Chennai, I would say that there is definitely very less patronage.
I just like to add to that point a bit. Like for instance, like cities like Delhi, cities like Chandigarh, cities like, the ones who've had all your Corbusiers and all your, all your great architects like Ahmedabad, like so many of them, who've had these great architects. Architecture is not just seen as a product, it's not, it's a value system. It's a whole process. It's culture. It's philosophy. It's so many things. So, when I came, I worked in Delhi for several years after passing out from college. And definitely, that was the whole, that was where all the energy, to a large extent, of course, small practices are the same everywhere to a large extent, but there was a huge stress, not just in the academic field, but also in the profession, about investing all this thought process into the architecture itself. And when I came into Chennai, I remember this was like, in the 90s, I think. And, architecture at that time, thank God it's not like that now, but it was very much a business, you belong to the Roundtable, or you belong to this table or that table, or whatever, and you got your business only through those.
Aarti, is there anything wrong in imagining an architecture practice as a good business? Because
ultimately, at least that's my thing, is we are design professionals. It's fine to be a good businessman, but you have to be a really good design professional first, and then sure, be a good businessman, that's fine. But I'm saying, at least I think you really be an outstanding design professional and the business will follow. That's my way of looking at it. Perhaps we don't have a great historical, in terms of some great
But suppose,
masters on all that who worked here. So
yeah, I'm going to pose it to Anu. Yeah, Anu, is there seriously a sense of conflict here to be a good professional and to be a good entrepreneur? If you want to substitute the word business with entrepreneur, is that a difficult thing to do in Chennai, to be both?
I'm sorry, I was actually preparing for the previous question. So
No, go ahead, please.
could I,
Yeah,
the thing of supply and demand. So
Yeah,
to make it as brief, I know we're out of time, so I'll just make it very brief. I think Chennai, since we're talking about Chennai, I think Chennai has a conservative approach to, I mean, it's economically conservative. I
you mean
don't
low
think,
fees? Is that what you mean by
yes, low fee. So I think the first question that comes to somebody's mind could be, even if they wanted a really nice building, I mean, they might think, should I really spend on the architect? Or could I put that into the building itself? Or could that just be part of my savings? Or the other fee that goes into all the other allied fees that goes into producing a building. And I think, yeah, that conservative mindset. And also I feel we're very content as a culture. I mean, are we really asking, is everyone asking for great buildings? And I don't see that, I think.
I'll send you a few clients, Anu. So
yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to bring Raj and Prabhakar here.
I have just something to add on to what
Okay, go
was
ahead.
saying. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, of course, like, Delhi's same by Bangalore. I think it's very different. But are we comparing to, like, are we comparing the government organizations and the way they kind of give us projects, or are we talking about general people who are aware and then they're going to be okay to pay and then get the services? So on a general note, yes, as Anu also said, like, I think everybody practicing in Chennai is a conservative thing, unless not they're very demanding people, unless not you prove that there's value. I think it's not going to be an easy task. So, but generally, as a practice itself, I think I don't see the governmental organizations or anybody paying much more than what you're not paying meager amounts. Not even what COA has said. So in that sense, whether the project is in Delhi or Bombay or Kerala or wherever it is, how do we even say that it's still better there and then it's kind of not fine here? So I don't know on that sense, because maybe personal projects, like when people are building projects for themselves, maybe they're okay to pay. But in that sense, I think Chennai's become a little better. I would say, like, when it was 10 years back, it was really tough having a conversation with our clients to make them spend a little bit where the awareness was very less. But I think it's changing a bit right now. So it depends on what we are looking at.
Okay, Raj and Prabhakar, I'm going to ask you a question in this context. Do you think if you were to pay more in terms of fees, you'll get better services in Chennai? The quality of design will improve? Do you strongly believe, or do you seriously think there are certain capacity issues in the profession itself?
Srivatsan, coming to the question of design, adaptation, and innovation, we're open to all that. One of the reasons we are not able to give something which is almost on terms of whatever you're talking about Bangalore and other areas is the land cost. That is one of the main reasons we are not able to think. The land costs are prohibitive here, which constitutes to almost 60% of the entire cost. It should be the other way around. The land cost should be 40% and the construction should be 60%. No, it's the other way around. So we're finding a lot of limitations. So we are pushed to the brink. So what do we give? But whatever we have done in the recent past, or whatever Sriram has designed for me, has been some exceptional buildings which people have appreciated. And some of them have even come back and asked this question: why do you spend so much on this building and the exteriors and the landscaping and other things? Why don't you give us something inside? That is the mindset of people today. No matter what the cost of the apartment is, whether it's 10 crores or 12 crores, this is how one thinks.
Okay, thank you. Prabhakar, yes,
Yeah, I think it is more to do with a culture of a particular place or a city. And Chennai is definitely a more conservative city. I wouldn't say, see that in turn impacts or has an influence on the creativity or the services an architect can give. So Bangalore, for example, is more open. I mean, this is the case in software industry where I can easily relate myself to. It brings in more people to there. I mean, the society is a little open, so it brings in all kinds of people. So that brings in more creativity. So that kind of the ecosystem gets built up. So that definitely, that is definitely something I would say it's an influencer. But in terms of creativity, I don't think one set of people are better than this set of people. I mean, this is an indirect influence that creates that this thing.
Wonderful. So we are running short of time, so I'm going to just have two questions. The last question is more like a wrap-up question. Now, before that, so there are quite a few comments on the low level of skills and also in terms of training and education. So I'll make this question about that. So you think most of you architects here who recruit young graduates and trainees quite often, whether the professional education and training in this country is supporting the professional practice in a way, or are you bearing the cost of training most of these people and sort of not actually reskilling, but actually skilling them, providing skills, and is also becoming part of the profession in terms of cost and time? So quick reactions from just three. I may not be able to ask everyone, Pradeep, Madhu, and Mahesh on this.
Maybe I'll go first. And definitely it's true. The quality of education that students and young architects are getting in colleges definitely does not prepare them anywhere close to being professional grade, if I may use that term. And there is a lot of time and energy at the office that one has to spend right with young architects to kind of skill them. So that definitely is an issue, and it does add to the cost because things take just that much longer. And you as a principal or the lead team leader has to kind of spend more time on this activity rather which you could have otherwise spent on, say, marketing or business or innovation or design. So yes, that's true. That's true.
Okay, Madhu and then Mahesh.
I think it's true. In the way they take them in, even to people who completed their masters, or even to people who have experience. I think what as of now you expect is not always very relevant. So in that sense, yes, it is a process of taking them and then training them and all of that. But yeah, I think it's essential. Every firm works very differently, and what they offer is very different. So I think it goes. But I think in education, I think a little more diversity is also required. That's what I think, and a little bit of practical knowledge. I think execution is an area where people struggle a lot. So yeah, understanding reality and presenting themselves, communication. All that become crucial areas. And people even sometimes in Chennai, especially Chennai-based universities and all of that, people, it's tough to even open up. I think it's also, I don't know, it's about the ability to open up. I think that's also something where people have to really, as designers, I think the ability to talk, open up, communicate, and also stand for something, all that matters a lot.
Okay, Mahesh, yourself.
I think in terms of students or in terms of fresh applicants, I think one thing I find needs a lot of trust is problem solving skills. I think when either it's a design problem solving skill or an operation. So it's
Okay, can you speak a bit louder? I'm just not able.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, slightly
now?
better. Yeah.
Now I was talking about problem solving skills. That's one thing I really want, on the table when you hire someone. And that seemed to be kind of really not happening. And I also won't blame them. I think even as architects, I think the field has specialized so much in the last probably 10 years that we ourselves are kind of struggling to kind of understand all the facets and sort of tie it together. So, but I think these problem solving skill to me is something which they can also become part of the larger issue that one is trying to address, and try to sort of take that forward. So both as a profession and also as an education, I think there is a kind of churning that's happening. Hopefully it will settle in one way or the other, but that's something very fundamental, I would say.
Okay. Now my last question, and this will be a wrap up. And again, I won't be able to pass around to everyone. So two questions actually. So the first part is for Anu and Aarti. Whatever we may say, there are only few things which the profession is under control. There are certain things which it cannot control in terms of market demand, pay, etc. What it can do is turn inside and strengthen itself rather than expect changes to come from outside. So would you agree that professions have to turn inward and change and not expect things to change outside? Or do you think, no, that's a very unfair demand to pose on the profession, that you need changes from both sides?
I think from both sides, as I said, people need to be give us, I think, a little more design freedom. Even, I mean, if you've chosen a firm to go with, I think, put a little more trust in them. And, that is one thing. But I do agree that we have to get out of our shell as well. Like the point that you made of being stuck in that thing of being an artist. And sometimes, we, to give this whole package thing, to also, have the rules at our fingertips, and the best, most efficient design is also important. Sometimes I do think as a person, as an architect, may be thinking more along the lines of, how beautiful can I make this? How interesting does this look? And I think, yes, that's something that we could improve on.
Aarti, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, my premise is always that, yes, we are primarily design professionals. And absolutely, yes. I mean, anything to do with the design, to do with materials, to do with even the regulatory things that were mentioned at the beginning, all that, sure. I mean, I'm sure we could, as a profession, improve a lot of things. But ultimately, it's, I think, it's how we see ourselves and how we project ourselves and how we understand ourselves as design professionals. And I think, we need to keep working on that and keep improving that. Right?
Okay. Last words to Raj and Prabhakar. Your questions. What do you think the industry must do to support the profession? And what do you think the profession must change and support the building industry? So what are your views, Raj and Prabhakar? Raj first.
I think, Doctor, is that the first architect should be technically very sound. Okay. I think you'll find a lot of solutions for this when he's technically sound. He can find all the solutions for us. And this industry will be a better place to work with.
Okay, great. Prabhakar, yourself. Prabhakar, unmute yourself, please.
Okay, I would say something along that line. I mean, an architect, apart from designing, architect having the knowledge related to that, like a structural and, the other building related knowledge is definitely a big plus. And if they can throw in the other services, that will definitely be a big plus for us. From industry side, I've been enjoying, I would say the industry should also give more space for the architect to, exercise their creativity. So there's a fine balance, where it comes, the industry, as long as it is within the, as long as we can afford, I think the industry will also come forward to give that flexibility.
Thank you, Prabhakar. I think we need to sort of end here. And this is one of the conversations where we're bound to think we're about to warm up and move into some deeper questions, and then you suddenly see the time is up, party is over, we have to go back. This was anticipated because this is not something, as I said at the beginning, this is a conversation with very modest ambition. And I'm really extremely thankful and for these sharp, observant comments. I'm sure it was a very polite conversation, one of the politest I've ever attended to, and I was expecting few more sparks, but that's fine. We're not here on Republic TV or something like that. So this is good, nice conversation. Thanks again for your observation and comments, and thanks everyone who has joined. Just to tell the other who are here, this is not the only series of only conversation in the series. There are two more coming. The next one, I hope, is a conversation between young firms and old firms. I mean, not so old firms. And the last one will be a discussion of architects who have sort of innovated their practice and looking at alternative ways of practicing. These two are in the pipeline, and I'm sure CAF and Saira would shortly announce this, the dates and speakers and so on. Thanks for listening in, and it was a wonderful evening. I hope you found this enriching or informative, or I don't know. Please write to us and let us know how things went. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Watson, thank you, everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank